Oh my god, damn, that's one dry ass running pun. But not to worry, because just for today, I'm in denial. Not really though, but I am John Patrick Kennedy, your resident African from the south, and today we will be looking at the Grand Ethiopian Revolutionary Dam of Ethiopia. Its inauguration is finally here and it is about to light up the African scene. Let's dive in. Okay, nestled there on the mouth of the Blue Nile in northwestern Ethiopia, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, sometimes affectionately, sometimes anxiously known as GERD, is Africa's biggest hydroelectric power project and one of the most ambitious engineering feats anywhere in the world. Picture this, a concrete wall nearly twice as high as the Golden Gate Bridge and 1.8 kilometers long. No, it's not Trump's wall with Mexico, but the senile old fool is claiming that he both funded it and is against it. Just to mention, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam project isn't just big, it is monumentally huge, literally and conceptually. The dam reservoir can roughly be thought of as the size of New York City. Satellites tell the story. Just have a look at this. It went from a barren valley in 2015 to now a vast, basically inland sea. It took over a decade of construction and more than $5-6 billion of costs. More than 2 miles away, it made its neighbors very upset, and construction officially kicked off on April 2011. The idea has been swirling around since the 60s though, and that's worth noting, because Ethiopia has been long since dubbed the water tower of Africa due to its highland greeneries and quite generous rainfall, quite honestly. So they finally basically decided it is time to plug in and tap out whatever potential was theirs for the reaping. The thing is Egypt is in a pickle and about 90% of their water comes from the Nile. 97% of their population are directly dependent on the Nile. The UN defines water scarcity as having less than 1,000 cubic meters per person per year. Now Egypt is at 570 cubic meters per person per year. So big concerns from their side, but is that Ethiopia's fault? That is very dangerous and very anxiety causing. For some context, Egypt is, along with Sudan, part of an agreement that was made by Britain around the resource distribution or the water division of the Nile between these countries. Now, England, being England and a colonial power, decided that, it's not important to consult any of those countries they didn't dominate. So they excluded Ethiopia, Kenya, and so forth entirely from these discussions. Now, that's quite important because they allocated about 60% of the water of the Nile to Egypt. It wasn't theirs to allocate though, worth noting. Because a good 80% of the Nile's river comes from the Blue Nile, originating in Ethiopia and where this dam is structured. Okay, angsty stuff. So from 2015 to 2019, key structures started to take shape, and Ethiopia insists that the GERD will light up homes, not start wars. Egypt is unconvinced. They'll show you. 2020 to 2023, the big moment, the filling starts to begin, and this sparks the first drama. Now, the majority of the controversy is around the water distribution, but Ethiopia makes a very good case here. Essentially, Ethiopia is not dependent on the Blue Nile for their consumable water or their irrigation. They do, sure, utilize it, but the majority of their rainfall is across the country. So they need not depend their entire civilization on that Blue Nile. They built the GERD Dam with the mind of hydroelectricity. So this is kind of shown by the fact that there has been an estimated 3% disruption during the entire filling of this dam. That is nothing, if we're honest. On top of that, when this dam is full, which it is now, it can store a whole year worth of the Blue Nile water flow that would usually go down the river. I hope this makes some sense. That means that, if anything, should the water be cut right now from the heavens and from the Nile? Ethiopia's GERD Dam is a massive resource which can actually allow steady water to go through. That's not mentioning things like kind of basically filtering the water for them and providing flood stability to Sudan. Now, let's get onto the timeline. 2023, the filling is on the way. 2024 to 2025, we are nearing full operation, and here we are now at all 13 turbines expected to be functional. That would produce about 4,400 megawatts of power capacity. That is enough to electrocute? To provide electricity to, to millions of people. With over 5,000 megawatts of generating capacity, the GERD Dam will really be something revolutionary. At this stage, have a look at Ethiopia's statistics economically over the past 10 years. This is a country that has been severely struggling for years and years, but in the last 10 years, they've averaged a GDP growth of above 9%. That is some of the fastest economic growth anywhere in the world, and that is before this. Now, for you to develop as a country, as an economy, you need infrastructure in a road and transport sense, and you need electricity. The entire population and then some of Ethiopia will be provided with electricity, clean electricity, so much so that they will be able to export to their neighbors, to even as far as Tanzania. Now, this is about 400 million people that can be provided with electricity. Note here that it is by African standards. It wouldn't be able to provide 400 Americans or Europeans with electricity, but it would be able to provide 400 Africans with electricity for an entire year. Oh, over the course of a year. Okay, now, so the $5-ish billion mega project is taking a lot of pride in being self-funded by Ethiopians, and this is largely true. Not to discredit them at all, but based on available evidence, a realistic breakdown would be Ethiopia's domestic bonds and investment and workforce contributions provided a roughly $2-3 billion contribution, while Chinese loans and backdoor loans in the form of equipment financing and construction contracts that are discounted likely contributed a good 2-3 themselves, making it essentially a 50-50 partnership, but it's not one that is being tied to anything. I think that in the end that this is just good for economics. Remember that China does want more markets to sell to, better markets to exploit. Here's the thing about Ethiopia though, and why this dam matters. Electricity isn't just scarce in Ethiopia, it's shockingly unpredictable. Living in a country where we're talking about 70 million people, that's 40% of their population, have zero access to the power grid. The people that do have electricity have blackouts almost daily. In South Africa, we call this load shedding, and we also struggle with it. There, apparently, it's lasting from 8 to 12 hours at times. Sometimes in rural areas, the electricity in communities will be in the dark for weeks on end. Without stable electricity, factories can't operate and crops can't be processed. Things can't happen, industry can't progress. It's like trying to run a marathon not with your shoes tied, but with no laces at all. You have to stop every third, fourth, fifth step to readjust your shoe, get back into your stride, treat your blisters, and cry in a puddle hating yourself. Let's go through the highlights of the big controversy here. Ethiopia began building the GERD Dam without securing approval from Egypt or Sudan. Now, standing from the outside, you can kind of get that because it's not like Ethiopia were consulted, and it's not like the Nile is not within the territory of Ethiopia. Egypt saw this as a violation of international norms and shared water courses. Ethiopia countered, it's our water, our dam problem, and we have the right to develop ourselves. This is a very fair point, especially considering that Ethiopia does not plan to use the water. Ethiopia has been filling the dam's reservoir in phases since 2020, and Egypt fears rapid filling could reduce the downstream flow. We've come to see that this is not the case. The dam has been filled and there was less than a 3% disruption throughout the filling process. Now, we are quite fortunate here because Ethiopia has experienced higher rainfall than usual. The real test might come during a drought. Now, the thing is, Egypt wants a legally binding agreement on the dam operations, a minimum and maximum number on the amount of water flowing through their reservoir. Ethiopia has resisted, offering non-binding guidelines, and they're wary of conceding sovereignty and authority on this matter. Down to the dust, we've got Sudan, who basically, Sudan initially did actually support the GERD Dam because, cheap clean energy plus regulated floods equals win and positivity. But as the dam construction went on, they started getting concerned about dam safety. So something like a break in the dam's construction or the dam wall or something going wrong would mean a flood in Khartoum. And a lack of transparency from Ethiopia has also made them nervous. At the same time, you have to wonder how discussions could look if there was someone to talk to in Sudan. Now, Ethiopia sees GERD as a symbol of development, a light in a dark world, built without IMF loans or Western aid. Egypt sees it as an existential threat and perhaps the last nail in the coffin for their futures. From the outside, and I'm sorry if I offend any Egyptians here, but Egypt wants to hold Ethiopia accountable, but I feel like from the outside that is not really fair. I can see that they have many concerns, but if you look at the data, if you look at the potential risks of water and disruptions, I feel like we would have seen them by now. If they have not come yet, where will they come and how will they manifest? Do these pros not massively outweigh any potential, keyword potential, cons? I feel like this is a matter of trust, of historical geopolitical power plays and insecurity in facing their own challenges, which are severe challenges, but which aren't challenges that are being compounded by Ethiopia or the GERD Dam in any real, literal way.